Another video from Sydney. I love attacks. Snow White, how to destroy a classic. Here we go.
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
Nothing. Ghost.
What is this? Hi, my name
I'm
is
so glad I didn't watch that movie.
Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by Raycon. And of course, by my company, Lions D Exchange. I've only got a few boxes left of the peppermint white chocolate,
Right,
so if
Sydney,
you'd like to give
I
the
love your
two
content.
remaining winter flavors
Sorry,
a
I have to
go,
skip.
because he helped a lot with me making a lot better at this YouTube thing. Also, big thank you to my friend Brandon Morse, who writes for Red State and also has his own YouTube
Her
channel.
own sponsor.
Because he helped a lot with me making this video, so go and check him out. I will link him in the description box. He also made a video about Snow White as well that I think you should all go and watch, so go do that. Go show him some love, because I'm not sure that I could have gotten this done if it weren't for him. Get you some friends that take pity on you in your weakened state. It's quite useful. Anyway, now that Disney's Snow White remake is only a couple months away, the company has started blessing us with more and more trailers, showing us what we can expect from the film.
Wait,
And
the
as you
movie is
guys
still
know-
not out? They've been teasing so much. What? Guys, it's just like Assassin's Creed Shadow. Didn't they delay again? Like, they delay around February, then they delay to March again. They keep delaying now. March something. Yeah, I'm not sure the date, but they keep delaying. Just like Snow White the movie. They keep on announcing trailers, but not dropping really the actual movie or the game.
This point, because I've talked about it a lot in other videos, I am not going into this with the high expectations at all. And frankly, I'm not sure that anyone else is either. At this point, as most of you know, Disney has been fighting an uphill battle with this movie since day one. From the massive...
The reason why they are fighting is because themselves. they are the only reason why this problem happens. Dude, Disney.
backlash towards the casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow
You're
White,
fighting your own
to
devil.
their decision to include 7 magical people instead of the 7 dwarves.
Yes,
to them
this
then
one.
backtracking and replacing the magical people with horrific CGI abominations of the dwarves when they could have just
Yeah,
cast
they released that leaks, right, and then like backfires them. And so they changed the
people in the first place. And lately,
The cast,
I
maybe.
personally love this one, we've found out that Snow White's name is because she was born in the snow, not because of her skin color. I hate
Oh.
it here.
We don't mention about skin color because, you know, very sensitive topics.
But as the film's release date draws closer and closer, I wanted to weigh in on why I believe that this movie will be yet another catastrophic
about-
failure.
Alright, talk about skin color. Just quickly drop it here. I find it funny, you know, America banned TikTok, and so the Americans panicked and went to Xiaohongshu, right? And some of the thing is right. Asian people is very savage, guys. Alright, when it comes to like racist, I think I've seen some like posts, people being racist under their posts, and they are shocked that Asian doesn't filter, guys. No filters. What? Oh my god. What? Why is that? Why are they so racist? Yeah. Okay, alright, guys. Alright, suck it up. It is what it is. Asians are racist and savage. Alright, of course, there are wholesome part of people here as well, but you have to you have to face the reality. No one really cares about this shit on the internet. People are gonna shoot whatever they think of in the comments. Alright, no babysit here.
For the company. And I think it's important to highlight why this is extra sad, given that the 1937 Snow White, the original Snow White, is really the animation, the full-length animation, that put Disney on the map in this capacity. Snow White and the 7 Dwarves was the flagship animation for the Disney of old, and it's kind of crazy to see what the Disney of now is doing to it. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Disney
The incoming catastrophic
is
failure that is going to be
ruining
the
everything, yes.
2025 Snow White film. And in addition to all of my regular disclaimers, like this video not being exhaustive and whatnot, just know that I probably have missed things on account of having a sick brain. Not sick as in deranged, sick as in mucus. Listen, that's an important qualifier in 2025. Leave me alone. But as per usual, before you once again board my hell gondola and together we
Sorry, I just saw a comment. Snow White's name has a history. Yeah. Again, Disney don't care about history anymore, right? Whatever the origin is, they just have to modernify it.
This lake of
Which is
disappointment and
ruining
tears,
it,
and why
yes.
are they doing this? Let's hear from today's sponsor, Raycon. Hey you, I bet
Another sponsor. Alright, Sydney, I love your video. Sorry, I have to skip, yes?
.com/Sydney Watson. Now, I actually made a video a little while ago discussing the insufferableness of modern Disney princesses, and in that video, I talked about the historical context surrounding the 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs film. And although I am always hesitant to go over old ground, I do think it's really important to reiterate some of those points so that you too can understand the context in which this film was made.
I wonder
Firstly,
why.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which debuted in 1937, came at the tail end of the Great Depression, a period marked by severe economic hardship and widespread poverty following the 1929 stock market crash. During this time, the role of women in society was evolving. As men were laid off in the thousands, women began to enter the workforce in greater numbers, often taking up jobs in laundries, hospitals, canneries, and so on. The general sense at the time was one of gloominess, except for Hollywood. Believe it or not, the film industry experienced tremendous success during the 1930s because it was able to give weary, impoverished audiences exactly what they craved: escapism. While other industries were faced with severe challenges at the time, American cinema achieved unprecedented levels of cultural impact, and this was due in part to studios prioritizing comedies, musicals, and storylines that celebrated triumph in the face of adversity. When Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs finally made its debut, it was perfectly poised to provide more of this message.
Alright, yeah. I think Snow White is their first cartoon movie, right? If I'm not wrong. That's why they'd be like, oh, this project is very important to Disney.
On the surface, it was a story that showed a young woman not only succeeding, but overcoming the evils around her. This was an inspiring message for 1930s America. I've seen other people mention that some of its success was due to the secondary characters, like the dwarves and the evil queen, who played their own very important roles for audiences. And this is something to broadly note about Disney in its golden era. It allowed for secondary characters to play pivotal and important roles, but more on that later. As I mentioned in my last video, where I went into the history of 1937 Snow White herself has been viewed as embodying the spirit of 1930s American women, reflecting not just the era's aesthetic, but its resilience. To once again quote art historian Carmenita Higginbotham, Snow White, while not a revolutionary figure, still demonstrates a spirited character who leverages her skills and traits. Her story, rather than endorsing a domestic role for women, might be better interpreted as an ode to simpler, less troubled times. After all, if you are in fact a woman in 1930s America, just struggling to get by, why wouldn't you want a prince to come along and sweep you off your feet? And if you're a 1930s man without a job, struggling to feed his family and having to send his wife off to the canneries, wouldn't you want to be the man doing the sweeping? I think that we can confidently say that yes. Yes, you would.
Yeah,
the second
it's
important
fantastic.
thing to
Come
note
on.
is what 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs meant to Walt Disney himself. During the 1930s, full-length animated films were virtually non-existent. Animations were only a few minutes in length and often played in theaters before the feature production. These animations for Walt Disney Productions were supremely popular, but Walt wanted to expand. For some time, he'd already been considering doing a feature-length animation, but finally settled on the Brothers Grimm fairy tale, Sneewittchen, I think that's how that's pronounced. I'm not sure. Anyway, it means Snow White, and that became the basis for his film. Years earlier, he had been inspired by a 1916 hour-long silent film about the same story. It seems that once his mind was made up, there was no shifting him from this idea. Walt Disney knew that his film would be an important project, despite those around him arguing otherwise. The project was viewed with such skepticism and negativity, it was even nicknamed Disney's Folly, as other Hollywood folk expected it to be a catastrophic failure. Nope, they were about 100 years too early for that judgment. Walt Disney was undeterred. In an effort to get his team on board, he reportedly spent 4 hours acting out the entire Snow White story.
50 cents a piece, which was a lot of money, the equivalent of at least $10 now, to have a nice dinner and to come back to the studio where he related by himself the whole Snow White story. He acted all the parts. He even indicated the songs. He had the characters. Everything in the Snow White picture was completely developed in his own mind.
Then, with everyone's approval, he poured years of his life.
How did they do this to the OG? Why would that destroy the value of the OG film like this? What? Walt Disney, right? He poured heart and soul into this animation. Why? Oh my god.
Almost
it's just so sad now.
$1.5 million and the future of his company into what would later become a box office success. It's important to note that Walt Disney wanted to do more than just tell a story about a girl and an evil queen. He wanted to...
Damn. Bad to his employers, artists, low payment. I think, guys, you have to accept that animation studio everywhere is like this. Everywhere. Even Ghibli, right? I wouldn't say like abuse or overwork, but definitely overwork, right? Overwork is definitely there. Not sure about low payment, but as an artist, it is what it is. There's no like fair payment. You just keep drawing. And what am I gonna say? Okay, I was gonna say, right, if I'm like Walt Disney created a movie film, right, and got popularized, and then I died. Yeah, I died of old age, and then my successor make a remaster movie of my film, right? Going woke route, I'll be like, oh my god, no fucking way. Why? Oh my god, I'm gonna die twice.
To bring the world around that girl to life. The film was made at a time when animation required detailed
disrespect
frame-by-frame
to the
work,
original
with every
artist.
additional element taking days or sometimes weeks to animate. Disney envisioned a film where every inch of the screen was full of life. From the foreground to the background, he ensured that frames were packed with movement. Walt Disney and his team ended up using several new techniques in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, such as larger animation cells to ensure all artistic details could be included, and using what is called multiplane camera, which gave the illusion of 3 dimensions by placing several layers of drawing, one behind the other, and moving them separately. This was a definite game changer from the side-scrolling 2D animations to which audiences had grown accustomed. Although early viewers might not have recognized the technical intricacies behind the film's magic, they still would have noticed scenes like Snow White running terrified through the forest. Here, the branches seemed to be grabbing at her, and the ominous eyes in the shadows were eventually shown to be those of benign forest creatures. The trees in this scene were not just static elements, but actively part of the storytelling. All of this to say, Walt Disney took a real chance on producing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and it was a resounding success. And really, without her, without the prince, the dwarves, and the evil queen, Walt Disney Productions might never have taken off like it did. Like I have pointed out in other videos, Disney films were a product of the time, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was no exception. So the question then becomes, if this film was once so well received by audiences, then why is the modernized 2025 version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs destined destined to fail? Well, I think that there are a few reasons for that. The 1937
Many
Snow White and
reasons,
Seven
baby?
Dwarfs was hugely anticipated by the public, while 2025 Snow White has been slated as a failure
Ooh.
before it's even hit
What
cinemas.
happened here?
Not to mention, it's been embroiled in controversy since day one. Disney had already primed audiences
Oh
to
god,
be
this
disappointed.
Mulan. Oh my god. I've watched that, alright, Mulan. Hua Mulan. I love the OG animation, but that movie, ugh, god, pain.
with its live action
Ugh.
remakes, especially
Kill
after
me,
so
bro.
many had fallen flat for so many of the same reasons. Weird CGI, and honestly, guys, that's putting it pretty mildly. Inappropriate
Lion
casting
King, please.
choices, also putting it very mildly. Terrible writing and corporate feminist narratives have been accepted as the norm in most of these films. So when a Snow White remake
Please.
looked like a serious reality, viewers were already anticipating more of the same. And our first real introduction to what the film was going to be came from leaked set photos of the lead actress in costume, a woman called Rachel Zegler, whose name
I think people keep making fun of her hair, like Lord Farquaad. Oh my god. It's just the hairstyle. Who's the hairstylist? Maybe the hairstylist hate her, guys. That's why they set that hair on her. What the
I
hell?
also sometimes say as Ziegler, and honestly, I might just alternate between the two, and I'm not sorry about it. We also got to see images of the 7 dwarves, who were not really even dwarves at all, but rather an assortment of what I can best describe as mental illness personified. The bizarre thing here was
Oh,
that
please, that's so
Disney's
funny.
replacement of the 7 dwarves seemingly came about for no other reason than little person actor Peter Dinklage complaining about the use of dwarves in the film, calling it effing backwards. Oh really, Peter, please, no, really, just tell us more. Needless to say, Rachel Zegler's casting and no dwarves set the tone for what was to come, and it really set people's blood on fire. On the one hand, Disney was proud to have cast a Latina actress as Snow White, while viewers were upset
Do you guys hear that? Snow White, but you know.
about the perceived race swap. After all, Snow
Not
White's
white.
name is literal and grounded in her appearance. She is originally described as a young woman with lips red as the rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow. The 1937 adaptation stayed true to this description, while the 2025 remake clearly would not be following suit. Because, you know, navigating that for woke Disney would have been a minefield. You can almost hear the activists crying. You might be wondering
That's the woman that cries when Trump wins, right? I think that's the
how
meme.
Disney planned to get around this annoying little
No.
fact. Well, instead of adhering to Snow White's original appearance and ethnicity, Disney cast aside the skin white as snow component and replaced it with Snow White was born in the snow. No, I'm not joking. That's where they're going with this.
To honor the day I was born, my father named me Snow White.
Stuff is so dumb. Good lord. Now, while not everyone agrees that characters should
God,
and
that's
must
so
resemble
funny.
the original source material, enough people do that this became an immediate issue. Like, no surprises there. And as an aside, while some of you might disagree with this, I think that Snow White being pale and fair-skinned is about more than appearance. The white, fair, pale thing is an allegory that ties into who she is. But that's obviously a longer conversation for another day. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the fairest in the land thing not only refers to the most beautiful, but also the most fair skin. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching there. Just ignore me. Also, it's worth remembering that only a few
mean,
years
that makes
earlier,
sense.
people learned Disney had race-swapped the red-headed Danish Little Mermaid in their upcoming live adaptation, and now we know how well that all went down. So at this point,
Oh,
it was
yeah. It failed, right? Because the audience is racist, basically. Yes, everyone is close-minded and racist. That's all there is to it.
very clear what the company was prioritizing, and that wasn't staying true to its own source material.
Little Mermaid is my
inappropriate-
favorite movie, by the way. Little Mermaid. I love Little Mermaid because that's like a first movie I watched as a kid. Mulan is the second, I think. So Little Mermaid is always like has a special spot in my heart. I think she's so goofy. with the legs. I remember, I love it so much. I was like, oh, she's learning how to walk. That's so funny. That's so cute.
Physical
yeah,
casting could
not
have
the-
been where this issue ended.
not
Had
the
it not
live
been
action,
for the fact
please.
that Rachel Zegler herself turned
Yeah.
out to be an enormous public liability. In several widely circulated clips, Zegler said that she didn't like or watch the original film, called The Prince a
Oh,
Stalker,
this interview
joked that they
pains
would
me.
cut all of his scenes from the remake, and touched on how Snow White basically don't need no man. For a lot of people,
A real princess don't need no man. Let's go. Period. Why would you shoot on the man? I don't get it. If you want to empower women, right, embrace the beauty of it instead of like pulling down the man's. Oh,
me included,
Can you
it
stop
was
that?
bizarre to watch one of Disney's actresses go
Yeah, I
on
love the
basically
songs,
a national
yes.
press tour where she publicly attacked the company's legacy work. The very work that Walt Disney built the foundation of his empire on and put the company on the map. Of course, her comments were not well received. Are we surprised? No, not really. And instead of appealing to existing
why not nice together? Yes, just be kind to each other instead of like filming wars on gentle.
fans and potential
It's
new
so dumb.
viewers, Zegler instead crystallized herself as a problem. Since
Yeah,
then,
look
she
at
has
look at that. Yeah, Snow White star brands Prince Charming a stalker. I've seen that interview. So she basically said, "I've watched the original one. The prince stalking on a 17 years old girl. Weird, something like that." I was like, you gotta be kidding me. When did the prince get creepy? I don't think I've ever seen a creepy ass prince in Disney. I have no idea. Why would you think that way? It's just a cute fantasy story. Even Cinderella. Even in Cinderella, yeah, I still love Cinderella. I love her diamond dress. It was so pretty as a kid. I've always wanted to wear a diamond ball dress, but yeah, it was so funny. Now, I think she could say Cinderella Prince is creepy as well. You know, like she danced with him in the Starry Night, right? You know, like a very fantasy, cute night. And then she ran away and left her glass shoe. He really want to find her, right? That's why he announced like all the women in the empire try the shoe so he can find his loved one. I'm sure she's gonna say, "Oh, he's so creepy about it." Yeah, maybe he has like feet fetish. Like it's just a cute little story. He want to find his love. Oh, come on.
Zegler instead
Beep, 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 beep. Yeah, I love that song. I've been singing as a kid as well. Oh God.
crystallized
Fairy
herself
godmother.
as a problem.
Love
Since
her.
then, she has only continued to dig her own grave, doubling down by calling those critical of her casting racist and misogynistic.
Ugh.
She's even recently made disparaging comments about Trump supporters that she eventually had to walk back. But bear in mind that
Guys,
Zegler's unpleasant
I
commentary
bet she's very sexist. Just
doesn't
saying.
exist in a vacuum. It's representative of where Disney is at as a company and the incoming girl boss
It's ironic that new wave feminism is more focused on the masculinity. Right, like Last of Us 2. The woman that killed Joel. I forgot her name. I don't want to remember her name at all. That is so dumb. Like, why strong woman must be muscular? Why not just feminine but strong as well? Huh? What's wrong with that?
of the Snow White film. One of the biggest issues
Oh
that
God,
I
it's
have with
Mulan.
Disney's princess remakes is in order to save these characters from the perceived damsel in distress trope, it inevitably forces them into an equally limiting girl boss trope. In an attempt to modernize its princesses and show them as strong, independent feminist women, Disney effectively strips them down to one-dimensional characters void of meaningful struggles, personality, and even the romance arcs that played an important role in the original animated films. And we know this is coming down the pipeline based on Zegler's description of her
Damn, I
role
love
in
the
the film,
artworks.
making it abundantly clear that the original Snow White animation is undesirable and telling us directly that there is no love story here.
It's really not about the love story at all, which is really, really wonderful. And whether or not she finds love along the way is anybody's guess until 2024. all of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows?
Something that has always bothered me is how this new wave of films acts as if romance and love takes away from a female protagonist. It's like every female lead has to be cold and heartless for her to be tough. Ironically, that's the opposite of what Snow White is. It's her kindness and warmth that makes her endearing and allows her to triumph.
Yeah.
Walt Disney and his team
That's a strong point. Why take away that?
knew this. Modern Disney seemingly views this as an impairment. Is that the right word? Maybe disability? Cripplement? Is that a word? Cripplement? It's a cripplement? And maybe this is an explanation
I have
for
no idea.
why these corporate feminist princess films have a tendency to sideline secondary characters who, like I mentioned earlier, are actually central to the storyline. Because why would the girl boss princess need anyone else when she can do it all herself? In this case, it's
Nah.
even in the name. The original film was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs because the dwarves are as key to the story as Snow White.
Yeah, maybe the new story, the dwarfs are the slave, you know. She want to take back her kingdom, right? So
Maybe even more so in some cases.
in the end, she's the leader. Yeah, she wanted to become the leader, alright? She's the queen. And the dwarfs work under her, and in the end, she's gonna take the credit, yes.
Film is
So
simply
she need
called
nobody.
Snow White because, as we know, it's going to be all about her. Relegating the dwarves to the sidelines is a massive disservice to the original animation and the original narrative that Walt Disney was trying to tell. To quote a great observation that someone left as a comment on one of my videos, and I'm very sorry for not naming you directly, I tried to find it and I can't, so if this was you who said this, you're very smart. A lot smarter than me. Congratulations, well done. Anyway, Snow White is treasured by these little men who see her as beautiful on the outside as she is on the inside. And it is through them that we get to know who Snow White is. They also play a key role in
True.
saving her and helping her grow. An example of her goodness is demonstrated through how she treats Grumpy, for example. To begin, he doesn't like her. He's standoffish and he's even a bit rude. Snow White sees him as a man who needs love. In the scene where she bakes a pie, Snow White made this specifically for Grumpy as a gesture of kindness.
Aw.
Over time, she wins him over, softening him and changing his overall demeanor. In the end, Grumpy is the first to lead the charge back to the house to rescue Snow. He is the first one chasing after the evil witch crone lady, and upon Snow White's death, he is the only dwarf to place a bouquet of flowers on her hands. Guys, that made me a little bit emotional saying that. It's like my sick brain is giving me the feels. Oh my goodness. Snow White definitely made an impact on the grumpiest dwarf, and his life is forever changed because of her. But mark my words, absolutely none of this will make its way into this remake. And if it does, guys, I will be unbelievably surprised, because modern Disney simply doesn't leave room for this sort of nuance. And it's ironically nuance that was able to be
Yeah,
depicted
that actually
in
makes
a
me
very
tears up a bit just now, damn. But
short animated film from almost 90 years ago. Cause Walt Disney knew what was up. Similarly to the dwarves, I'm extremely bothered by the idea that the prince in Snow White will be sidelined. What's not widely known is
the prince is like NPC in the trailer. He has no dialogue at all. He just appears in the screen. He's like a man that rents the horse for the princess or something. Hey princess, get on the
that
horse.
Walt Disney originally wanted the prince to have a much, much larger role. The trouble was, at the time, animators at the studio didn't have all that much experience drawing lifelike people. They weren't confident in their ability to do him and other humans in the film justice, so they felt it necessary instead to roll him back. I don't know why, but this just makes me envision them drawing a bunch of Cronenberg people because they don't understand human form, and for some reason that's just hilarious to me. Anyway, originally, Walt Disney planned to have the prince captured by the evil queen, and then held in a dungeon, and then saved by the woodland creatures. He also hoped that the prince would play a much greater role in trying to save Snow White. Ultimately, their lack of experience with human subjects just didn't allow for this to happen, which ironically opened a huge door for modern Disney. While I'm largely of the opinion that most of these remakes are completely unnecessary, perhaps this is the one and only time where modern Disney had the chance to tell the full story that Walt Disney couldn't. They could have given this prince a voice, a personality. They could have built on the ideas that Walt already had, but instead they did the exact opposite. Because in the world of girl bosses, princes are bumbling idiots, buffoons, and simply not of any use. Anyway, all of this to say that I hope you're seeing the pattern here. Doing the opposite of what Walt Disney would do, especially within his own company, often ends in disaster. This kind of rolls me around to the last point that I want to make about this.
Yeah, that's actually, you know, like big slap to the fans, right? We grew up with these films. We grew up watching them, knowing the story, knowing the character. And then a slap in the face like, you know what you watch as a child is wrong. He's a creep. He's a stalker. That prince you're in love with, yeah. You're in love with a creep, what, how dare you? Basically, insult the OG creator and the fans, basically. Both of them. Like, what are you doing here? You're trying to educate us? Is that it? Like,
Disney understood the movie that he was making
remake
was for
movies.
the times that he was in. One of the primary reasons remakes tend to suck is because you can remake the movie, but you can't remake the times. What I mean by that is that it's very challenging to take a film that was made for a specific audience during a specific period of time and remake it with the same story beats. They don't ring as true because we're effectively focusing in on the story needs of the time and not the story needs of today. Of course, there can be age-old messages that will apply no matter when a story is being told, and thankfully most Disney classics are full of these, but even I can admit that there is a time and place for modernizing a film, but it
Aladdin.
really has to be done correctly. One thing we can credit Disney of old with is its ability to create new films that met the expectations and the needs of the audience at the time. And as it progressed through the years, the company successfully hit on
this scene always makes me cry. Yeah, Mulan, you know, she's trying to get in this the soldier camp, right, instead of her father's place, and she live in the midnight.
Society's contemporary values. But back then, the changes weren't heavy-handed or advertised
love
like they
this
are
scene.
today, meaning people were able to enjoy the company's creations without being acutely aware that they were being force-fed an agenda. Some might call this subversive, and maybe it is, but it was clearly successful. Disney's existing problem is that its attempts to modernize these films are all wrong. And the irony is that these new modern boss ladies aren't even speaking to today's audience either. Disney is making movies for its own echo chamber.
Yes.
creating-
Oh my God. Deja vu, guys. It's like Dragon Age. Why is this happening in both movies and games? Is that a coincidence, guys? Actually, what is going on? Both games and movies industry.
characters that speak to what the activists at the company and those
One soldier per family. Yes, the mans have to go because the war is coming. That's why. But then her family don't have any sons, so you know her dad has to go.
in its viewership want. The funny part is these modern girl
And
boss
basically, her dad is gonna die because he's what they call again, like crippling leg, so he can't really walk. Sending him to war, it means sending him to death. So yeah, she couldn't let that happen.
movies can still get across the female
That's a strong woman right there. Disney, come on.
empowerment message, but that requires creating characters with actual depth. Entertainment that features strong female characters isn't exactly rare. These ladies have been popping up for decades. There are even several great shows released recently, like Blue-Eyed Samurai and Shogun, that feature some of these female characters. The issue is that, in the modern era, most writers and showrunners, especially those employed by Disney, have lost the art of subtlety. When you push an agenda before a story, you get message-first storytelling, which is hardly storytelling at all. This opens the door for writing that is too often plagued with self-inserts, bizarre casting choices, and what South Park's Matt Stone and Trey Parker call "and then storytelling," where things don't happen naturally, but happen because...
What is that? Sorry, is that the crab from Little Mermaid? What's his name again? Oh my god, why does he look like that?
The writer needs them to. It stops being a tale filled with characters you can relate to and plots that you're interested in, and just becomes flat-out propaganda trying badly to disguise itself as a story. Like a wolf trying to disguise itself as a sheep by writing sheep on its sides. So, in essence, Disney has two problems here. For one, it's trying to package up a story meant for a different time and sell it to a world that's moved on past that era, and doing so in a way that only speaks to a small
talk about era. I think woke era was a thing before, but then like nowadays we are just so over it. Like we get it, all right, race thing. Okay, like come on. The industry is too focused on race instead of the story. Sebastian. Oh, Sebastian. Yeah. The crab name. Basically a butler name.
Align ideologically
I mean, he did babysit Ariel, so it makes sense
with whatever agenda Disney is trying to push. Ultimately, for me, it is really tragic to see Disney take yet another beloved film, and not just a beloved film, but their flagship film, the film that put them on the map, and give it the modern treatment. Likely once again stripping it of what made it so magical to begin with. Of course, some of you might feel that I am making this video somewhat prematurely, given that the film hasn't even been released, and I am putting together...
I mean, we have seen so many trailers. We have seen so many interviews with the actor and actress, I guess. We kind of get the gist of it. Yes, like it's gonna be shit. Come on, common sense.
Opinion based purely on what Rachel Zegler has said in interviews
the actress.
And these trailers and whatnot. But I think that Disney has demonstrated that it doesn't care about its original source material, and it's going to continue creating remakes that don't stand up to the originals in any way, shape, or form. So of course, I fully understand and reconcile that I can't pass judgment on this film until I have seen it, but in a way, I don't feel like I really have to know that it's going to end up in a place that most of us don't like. Disney has already shown us time and time again what it intends to do. And in the end, I am once again incredibly disappointed with the way that this film is likely going to turn out. And I'm even more disappointed knowing that Disney is tarnishing its own legacy. Now on that note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder, check out Raycon using the link in the description. When you use my link, you will get...
Alright, thank you again, Sydney.
15% off site-wide.
Nice video.
Now open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you somebody who believes that this remake is not going to be very good because Disney's already told us that it's not going to be good? Do you think that we should give it a chance and we're all kind of passing judgment way too soon? What do you make of the horrible CGI of the dwarves or Rachel Zegler's comments about everything relating to this film? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Are you going to see it? Are you excited to see it? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you are not subscribed already and you would like...
I mean, again, we have seen it coming. It's gonna suck. Everyone knows it. Don't waste your money and time on the film, guys. Yes.